Hi, I'm Victoria Lee from Marshall Music, and I am here with one of my favorite musicians, Savina. Zdravej, Savina, kaksi.
Dobre sem, merci. A ti?
Dobre sam. Did I say that correctly? Savina, your journey to becoming the brilliant saxophonist that you are has been a little bit unconventional. Please tell me about that.
So music has been in my blood since the day I was born. My mom's a musician, so I naturally, the daughter of a musician, would have to have picked up an instrument at some point. So when I was 5, I started piano, and I've been learning classical piano since yay high. And I pretty much took it all the way up until when I was in high school. So my entire life was piano. And I remember when I was in my early teens, a family friend came to me and said, "Oh, you should try the saxophone. It's a sexy instrument." And he had a Serbian accent. So he was like, "Oh, you should do the saxophone. Very sexy." So I thought, oh, you know what? Let me give it a try when I was in high school. And I had about 2 years of training with the teachers there. And I played on and off after that. I never really took it seriously. I studied genetics, didn't end up studying music.
That's a far cry from music.
Yeah. The second I had the opportunity to drop music as a subject, I did it. I was done. I was grateful. So I realized when I was doing my honors, I wasn't actually enjoying myself, and I ended up dropping out of the degree, and I didn't even tell my parents. I walked.
It must have gone down well.
Yeah, no, I didn't take that very well. So then I moved over to Joburg, and I started teaching music. So the apple didn't really fall far from the tree, and it still kept playing saxophone intermittently. But when I moved to Joburg, I started getting a lot more gigs, and that's when I really found my love and my passion in sax. And it's pretty much been my bread and butter and my passion and my joy since then.
I think it's quite inspirational that it wasn't the conventional study music. And if I look at where you are today, I mean, you are in demand.
Yes, it's pretty cool.
Your early influences in music, who would you peg as your favorite artist in sax?
Everyone has a favorite, don't they? And I think I might disappoint a lot of musicians by saying this, but I didn't have any. I didn't actually go the conventional route of learning and reading and understanding who resonates within me in terms of the legendary saxophonists. I must say the biggest inspiration was my mom as a musician, and she's a classical pianist.
She's a cellist.
She's a cellist. So she's a classical cellist, and she is absolutely phenomenal in the way that she performs and the way that she carries herself. And she has influenced me greatly in terms of performing and being in tune with my instrument. So without having any actual genuine influences, I ended up learning to play to my own sound. I mean, I watched YouTube videos and I listened to how people articulate themselves, listening to other musicians perform. And I think in doing that, I got like an all-rounded inspirational idea as to how sax should sound. And that's what I'm pretty much doing for the rest of my life, just watching others and using inspiration from others.
If you look at your career now and you had to speak to an aspiring saxophonist, what do you wish you knew when you started off?
I think the one thing is I wish I had known how much work it is and how much practice you have to put into perfecting an instrument. I'm still mastering my instrument. I don't think you ever are a master of your own craft. You're constantly mastering the craft.
I suppose that makes you great.
Thank you. But I think it's extremely important to maintain a relationship with your instrument. If you don't feel connected to your instrument, you cannot convey that to the person that's watching you.
Speaking of your instrument, this is quite impressive. Please tell me about your current setup.
So I even have the mic on. Put it on, score. So this is my saxophone. I play a P. Moriat. This is actually the first saxophone I ever got. My dad bought it for me. And funny story, he said to me, this one day will bring bread and butter to my table. And I looked at him and I'm like, yeah, sure, Dad. And but he was right. Yeah. It is. So I rented out a saxophone when I was in high school. And then he said, let's go in for this. It's an intermediate pro level. It's nothing fancy, nothing student level. It's in between. So I have stuff on it.
Yes, you have a lot of stuff on it.
There's stuff.
I was going to ask about the stuff because I actually don't know. Like ligature is something new that I learned. How important is this and a mouthpiece in forming your sound?
I don't actually have a specific favorite ligature. I was one of those that used the stock standard ligature that came with your saxophone case for my entire saxophone career until 2 years ago. So I bought this jumbo jumbo Van Doren mouthpiece, and with it came the ligature. So I didn't even buy the ligature; it just came with it, and I thought it looked cool. So
it does look cool.
That's how much of an influence. I think that's how important it is to me. It really is not. Some people swear by their ligatures, others don't. I think it's just a matter of choice and what works for you. Some people like wearing sandals, others like wearing Crocs, whatever you want.
Yes. However, you did mention to me that you have a preference for a specific reed.
Yes, reed and mouthpiece is actually more important. In fact, I would like to say that your mouthpiece is the sole influencer in terms of your sound, because you get different chambers. You get round chambers, square chambers.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and nor did I until I started actually like searching on buying myself a different mouthpiece and experimenting with sound. So a stock standard recommendation is to get a Yamaha 4C mouthpiece because it's easy to blow, easy to work with as a start-off saxophonist. But I think the more advanced you get, you want to experiment with sound. So I got this. This wasn't actually really, it's a difficult mouthpiece to work with because it's got such an open chamber and it's got a lot of beveling in it, which basically means let me see if I can show you. I don't think the camera will be able to see. But some chambers are wide open, others are quite long and narrow. So the more narrow, the more the harder it is to control. So you need a lot of practice controlling your sound.
Okay.
But I chose this because it gives you a lot more variation with your sound. It was very frustrating at first. I almost rage quit on it multiple times. And that's when I got my plastic reed.
I was about to ask about the reed, the bamboo versus plastic.
But yeah, so I think everyone starts off on a bamboo simply because you can play around with the different type of reed, whether you want. There's so many reeds. I don't think you can go wrong. You just buy a few, play on them. I would recommend, if you're starting off, to take a size 2, and Van Doren always is great. You can get the blue or the green or the red. I like going with the green and the red, the Javas, because they're a little bit more filled with character. They are more jazzy versus the blue is more classical. Okay. So it depends on what you want to do and what you want to achieve with that sound. And it's also cheaper to do a cane reed from the start because your cane reed you replace often, hence the price is a little bit cheaper, and it's also easy. No, I don't want to say that. The cane reed is easy to use.
It's easy to use.
I like this one. This one's nice.
I think we pretty much covered it.
I do like the plastic simply because of the fact that it is extremely forgiving. It does not, it's not temperamental. So like if there's high humidity, low humidity, whether you are playing at night or in the morning, you can just slap it on. You don't have to put it in water like with a cane reed. Cane reed needs to be put in water or in your mouth for a few seconds to get it all ready, to get the moisture to go into the reed. So I like the fact that it's so reliable. I mean, yeah, I have quite a few plastic reeds and all of them have chips in them, and they still play without a problem. But if you have a cane reed and you chip it, you might as well have been it. The one con I must say about like a plastic reed is that it collects a lot of condensation and saliva. It's very spitty and breathy because there's nothing to absorb the cane. So I think dealer's choice. But I do prefer my plastic reed.
So if you have to look at the different saxophones as a beginner, someone that might be an entry level, what would you recommend? What sax would you prefer to play on?
I would say definitely invest in getting a saxophone that isn't cheap, or isn't super duper expensive that it's going to break the bank. I mean, if you've got the bucks, go for it. You want to play on something that will have decent intonation, decent material, and decent quality to the material. So anything from a Yamaha student model to the Jupiter student models. I, in fact, actually played on Marshall Music's Jupiter student range. I was mega impressed in terms of how easy it was to play, because that's also another thing. If you are a beginner and you want to invest in a really, really fancy saxophone, it is a little harder to control because of the fact that you need to work into the instrument, versus a student saxophone is focused on just letting you learn how to play.
Okay.
So I was very impressed with the Jupiter's intonation, the brightness, the ease of playing, the ergonomics, feeling it. It felt really comfortable. Don't break the bank for a first sax. In fact, if you can, rent a saxophone and see what type of brands they've got in terms of renting a saxophone. I haven't tried nearly enough saxophone brands to give my honest opinion, but I do think that it's a good idea to rent and then invest in like a medium intermediate range, like this one. I mean, I consider myself a pro and I still play a non-pro instrument. I don't think the saxophone really matters at the end of the day. The player behind the saxophone matters.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Although if you could pick anything to play on, what would your top picks be?
Well, I mean, if you're asking.
I'm just curious.
I guess if you get the opportunity to ride in a Rolls Royce, I mean, why not? So I honestly love Selmer and Yamaha, the Custom Z range, the Selmer top tier range. I mean, who doesn't? And then, well, non-sax players. No, I must say it's Yamaha and Selmer. The Yanagisawa I've never played on. Would be cool to play on, but Yamaha and Selmer for sure.
You have been to many gigs and I know you have some interesting stories. Please tell me about some of your most intimidating or funniest moments on stage.
There's a lot. I should write a book. Off the top of my head, I do remember this one. It was not intimidating or funny, but it was actually really wholesome. I was playing, I think somewhere in Melrose Arch, and there was an elderly lady that walked past, and I took note of her, and I think she was either sat down or she just paused and just watched. And at some point, we approached each other, and she had tears in her eyes, and she said that it was her dream to travel the world with her partner, but that didn't really pan out. So she's now traveling the world on behalf of him. And hearing me play moved her in a way that she did not know was possible. And then I started crying, and then she cried even more. And it was such a beautiful moment, sharing with a complete stranger that just felt so moved by the way I play my instrument. It was an honor.
It is actually beautiful. What do you think it is about sax specifically that stirs the emotion so deeply?
I don't think it's the sax. I think it's how you play your instrument. I think you can get the same experience out of a cello, out of a violin, out of any other instrument. It's all solely dependent on how you connect with your instrument and how in tune you are with yourself and how can you convey that emotion. But saxophone is almost like a translation of breath. So you use your voice to convey emotions.
So I thought.
Absolutely. So for me, I feel like I get to express myself in a way that no word can express. And I feel very free, very open. And it's almost like a very direct channel for me to express my love for my instrument. And I think keeping that in mind and keeping in mind that it all depends on the musician and being in tune with your instrument and connecting with the instrument, I think it's an honor to be able to express my voice through my saxophone.
I've heard a little bit of a funny story. Tell me about someone dropping coins into your sax. What happened there?
Yeah, firstly, they weren't coins. It was dollar bill.
It was dollar bills.
No, it wasn't dollar. I wish it was dollars. No, it was, they literally rolled a stack and they said to me, can you please play a song that they asked? And I mean, I have no problem doing recommendations. In fact, it challenges me to see how quickly can I learn the song on the spot. So at the end of that experience, I had a significant amount of money in my belt. And they left by asking me, this is now ties in with the question you asked earlier on. They left with asking me, so how open-minded are you? And I said to them, well, it depends on what your question is. And they said, well, we're having an open-minded house party where everyone's welcome. We can pay you whatever you want. And then that's when
it's okay.
No, I can keep that in the belt. Thank you very much.
I'm really busy. You are really busy, though.
I am.
I'm pretty fully booked for the next couple of months. What advice would you have for our up-and-coming musos regarding the business aspect?
It's tricky. I'm not going to lie. No one prepares you to be your own manager, marketing agent, booking agent, and then you have to manage your own personal life. So I prioritize ensuring that, so you are your own product. You need to market your own product. So I constantly ensure that whatever product I put out looks a certain way so that it attracts a certain form of clientele. I specifically market to the luxury entertainment industry. So luxury destination weddings, luxury restaurants, luxury corporate events. Obviously, that being said, I do still play in the local high-end market locations. But I think it is extremely important to engage with your client. So create a relationship with them. They're not just, hey, I'd like to make an appointment
For sure.
and swipe my credit card and leave. You know, I engage with my every single client. I create a relationship with them. I make an effort to meet them where they need to be met. I also think it's extremely important to, there was another thing I actually can't remember, because it was your product and it was marketing yourself well, chatting to your agents. But that being said, I must say it's extremely important to also balance your personal health and well-being, because if you are not well rested and feeling rejuvenated, you actually don't have the time and energy to deal with all of these people asking you for like quotes and inquiries. So I think there's a balance. I mean, we're all still trying to balance our own lives, but I think it's extremely important to balance your personal life and maintain a professional approach. This is a business. This is not just an instrument. You are your own product. So if you do not uphold your product to a certain standard, then you will not be treated in that way.
Have you ever been in a scenario where you had to kind of choose between your creative freedom on the sax, improv, and what you have been taught when you started playing?
Oh, yes. So, so I remember when again, classically trained musicians, it's such a thing. They don't tell you this. They do not teach you how to improvise. Jazz musicians are taught how to improvise. It is part of being a jazz musician. So classically trained, I have no idea in terms of how to improvise. And I remember when my partner and I first started chatting and see each other, he's also a musician. So he said to me, oh, let's have a jam and let's just improvise together. And I actually cried. I full on broke down. I said, I don't know how to do this. So I had to learn very quickly in terms of, yes, I'm being taught to read out off of sheet music, but doing that will only get you that far. So I remember when I was booked for my first improv session, I had to play 3 hours with a DJ I've never played with before.
That's a long gig.
To deep house music. There's no melody in deep house. So as a classical musician, you freak out. I freaked out. It was very long, but I must say, I guess if you could put at the deep end, you learn how to swim real quick. And I now absolutely love playing to tracks I've never heard. In fact, most of my gigs, I just throw in some tracks that I've never heard of just to mentally enrich myself, challenge myself, and also see how quickly can I pick up notes. So yes, what you get taught is important, but I think what you do with that and how you expand on that is extremely important.
I agree. But that brings me to my next question. You have like a creative venture with your partner, Dane. Please tell me a little bit more about that, besides playing for Broken Free.
I don't think many people get the opportunity to create music with their loved ones. It's a whole different type of energy.
It's romantic.
It's very romantic. It's almost like a moment. But it really is such an honor to share business with someone so professional. So it takes a serious amount of respect for each other, because not every gig is easy. One person might not have learned their songs, or the other person might not have communicated that this has to be done, and things happen. So it's extremely important that not only do you remain calm, but you remain respectful of each other, and you learn how to separate your relationship from business.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult, but I must say I'm very, very proud to say that we have always managed to maintain that level of respect. Which then brings us to the fun part, because when we play music, we don't just play. It's almost like, without sounding cheesy, but it's like our souls are communicating.
I've seen that personal interaction.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's fun. And when we get into sync, it's so awesome. I sometimes feel myself, I can feel him talking to me without any words. And we end up playing the exact same notes without communicating, without rehearsing, but we end up playing the exact same notes, or we start doing call and response. And it's absolutely phenomenal just experiencing that. It's an absolute honor.
Savi, for the audience, if we want to get in touch with you to book gigs, please direct us to your social media pages.
Savina On Sax. Jazz hands.
Jazz hands.
Savina On Sax. No.
Thank you so much for being with me today. How would I thank you in Bulgarian?
Do you want the easy version or the hard version?
Give me the easy version.
Just thank you. Yeah?
Yeah.
Merci.
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 Really?
Yeah.
Merci, Savina.
My pleasure.